So I served my entire mission in the capital city of Chihuahua, Mexico. I was never transferred out of the main city, which is kind of unusual, honestly. A lot of people get transferred out to different places. There's Cuauhtémoc and Delicias, Parral. There's a lot of different places that you can get transferred to, but I definitely stayed in the capital city, Chihuahua. It was honestly I feel like it was very different from the other areas of the mission. The main city had its challenges for being a city. So it's different from the rural communities in that area of Mexico, in that the people in the city are a little bit faster paced, not necessarily extremely fast paced compared to the United States, because I think everybody where I served was a little bit more laid back compared to how we are here in the US. But it was definitely, there was a lot of issues with transportation, so we had to make sure that we were always planning out times for bus routes, or if we needed to take a taxi somewhere, or if the weather was going to be crazy that day. So the weather in Chihuahua is honestly kind of insane. So the climate is actually high desert, so it's arid and it's very dry, but at the same time there's kind of monsoon season, and there's also dust storm seasons. So the summers would get just extremely hot. The summers are just over 100 degrees a lot of the time. Of course, they measure it in Celsius, which I honestly can't remember the measurements in Celsius, and we honestly half the time didn't know because we didn't have the technology. So we didn't even have a thermometer, and our phones were the little Nokia brick phones. So if a member didn't tell us what the weather was like that day, we would not know what it was going to be like. But it was I feel like the Lord helped us out with the weather. I feel like despite it being such extremes, he definitely would prompt us, bring an umbrella today, or make sure you wear plenty of sunscreen today. So it was interesting that in the summer we were allowed to bring umbrellas, because it would get so hot and so dry, and the sun would beat down on you so straight on, that our mission president told us that we should start bringing umbrellas for shade, which was very helpful. He also allowed hats, but you had to approve them, so that's something that you should probably know. There were times in the winter as well that were so just cold that it was almost impossible to get yourself going in the morning. So it was very important for us as missionaries to be prepared with leggings and tights and just all the layers, and tall boots, even winter boots, so that it doesn't snow or anything usually. Every few years maybe it snows in the main city, but it gets very low temperatures and very dry low temperatures, which really cuts you to the core while you're walking out there. And then there are certain times when it will just start raining, just huge drops of rain. So pretty much an umbrella all year round is kind of necessary. So the only temple in the state of Chihuahua is not actually within the Chihuahua, Mexico mission boundaries. It's actually in the Juarez, Chihuahua, Mexico mission, which is the upper half of the state. So we actually, as missionaries, were not allowed to attend the temple because it was outside of mission boundaries, but members would make the trip. There's a temple, I think, in Casas Grandes, and the members would make, it's about a 5-hour to 6-hour drive, and the members would make day trips out of it, once a month. And as a ward or as a stake, there would be temple days. So for our investigators that were, newly baptized, it was important for us to mention the temple, just so they can start going and get into that habit and start with baptisms and things like that. So we would actually tell them about the ward and stake temple trips that were planned, and we've had a lot of investigators actually be really interested in that, and we had a few of them actually go, obviously without us, but up to the temple with the church members. And it's a good way for them to form bonds with the church members as well, because, like Gordon B. Hinckley says, and like it says in Preach My Gospel, a member needs to have, a friend in the church, a calling, and to be nurtured by the good word. And so it's very important for them to start immediately going up to the temple, making those friendships, making those connections, and then, forming that relationship with the church, but also with the church membership, because that's what keeps people active, which is, the goal. So actually in a few of my areas, the church attendance wasn't super high. I don't know if it was a main city thing. I don't know if the attendance was better outside of the capital city, but there were a few areas where a lot of our work was focused on less active members of the church, which was actually quite the challenge. Requires a lot of patience, a lot of charity, a lot of pure love, because if you don't have real pure love for that person, they can tell, and they can tell that you are just trying to get them to go to church, and that's not the reason. So it was very eye-opening to visit a lot of these less active members and just hear their stories, hear them out, hear what happened and why they no longer feel that, church is something that they need to focus on. And then to really tune into that spirit and personally focus your lessons on their needs and, open their eyes to that eternal perspective and the reasons for coming to church. And, I had a companion at the time in this ward that was full of a lot of less active or inactive members, and my companion was very service-oriented, which I really appreciated, because sometimes it's hard to show people or tell people with words how much you love them, but my companion was very good at just going to a sister's house, maybe a widowed sister who was inactive, and just sweeping her floor or cleaning her kitchen or helping her with her laundry or, anything that they needed done. And it was a very rewarding experience to serve different people and different families and really start loving them like they were your own. There was this less active family that, I don't know that they ever got back to church, but they knew that the missionaries loved them, and they loved going out to visit people with us. And, that's the first step, is making sure that people know that you love them, which in turn means that the Savior really does love them, because that's who we're representing. So the church activity, it depends on your area, but I feel that there is a lot of retention issue, at least in the areas that I served in. So it was really important to make connections with the less active members and try to connect them as well with more active members of the ward and get them started with their own relationship with God, rather than relying always on the missionaries.